Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs. Welcome to the Dish on Dogs. I'm your host, Mike Gould, mayor of Houndstown, USA, home to the happiest dogs on earth. Joining me today, as always, is my lovely, lovely co-host, Jackie Bondanza. Joining her is this recalcitrant, truculent dog, Rosie. Zooming Rosie. This is a very special guest today, whatever the hell it is. Zooming Rosie should be an inspiration to everybody. She's only has use of two front legs, and we came across her, and Jackie will tell the story. But the theme of this episode, or the topic of this episode, is our charity work, Houndstown Charities, home to the most gifted dogs on earth. This is one of the most gifted dogs on earth. You're looking at her. Again, we found her. She has a horrible backstory. I don't even. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Supposedly she was beaten in Bolivia by kids. They broke her back. Some horrible thing. Is this true, Jackie Bondanza?
Well, it wasn't Bolivia. It was Armenia.
Okay.
But
same thing.
Same things.
Right. Not around here. It's not near Brooklyn.
Yes. So okay. Supposedly she was abused, and we rescued her. And she's sort of the face of Houndstown Charities, which is our... the philanthropic entity of Houndstown, USA, which is a fully interactive pet care facility. So about a year ago, we were out in LA, and we were hiking on Runyon Canyon. You were
I was having a heart attack.
To catch your breath at the top.
Hiking is walking, just FYI, but it's a fancy, I guess hiking is a fancy word for walking. But yes, we were walking up Runyon Canyon.
Yep, and we got to the top, and we were waiting for you to start breathing again, and then
I was looking for CPR paddles, those things to resuscitate. Not that you would, but so we were up at top of Runyon Canyon,
right? And then I
Hollywood
look over
Hills.
and I see Rosie. I see these two little ears coming bounding up the mountain
in a wheelchair,
and I didn't notice right away, but looked over again and saw that she was in a wheelchair.
Right.
Then on her leash, and she had a little flag on her wheelchair, and it said "Adopt me." And I immediately said to you, we have to adopt that dog.
Right.
For some reason, it just seemed like she was our dog.
Right. And how long did it take for us to formulate the opinion, the mutual decision to adopt her?
I mean, it was pretty 1 second.
Right. So the point is, we talk about, it's kind of cliche. They say, we don't find dogs, dogs find us. It is a little corny, I get it, but in this case, it's pretty true. We didn't think about anything. We didn't think about how she was, nothing. We just said, we need to have this dog.
And I think the reason that I thought that immediately is because she really represents what our charity represents.
Right.
Which is, we welcome disabled dogs at all of our Houndstown locations, and we focus on rehabilitating people through animals. That's our charity's mission. So I think she just embodied the spirit of the charity so well. The fact that she's in a wheelchair and she's got this great determination to do everything a dog with four legs does and can do, and so I think she's just an inspiration,
right.
and we just felt like she was Houndstown Charities.
Right. And on a personal level, right. Just the fact that she hiked or ran up Runyon Canyon, where I was sucking wind and I was complaining about my back, my knees, my ankles, where I was going to go for lunch. She was zooming. That's her name. Zooming Rosie. She has her own Instagram. I mean, you can see Rosie someplace, Instagram.
Yes, she does. She has her own Instagram page. It's called Zooming Rosie, at Zooming Rosie.
Very clever.
It was cool because she was the first dog. She was in a pack of probably 20 other dogs, and it's cool out there. They have rescues and fosters that all get together on the weekends, and they bring these dogs that need to get adopted. They bring them on hikes so that the exact thing that happened can happen. That they get exposure, and to people who will want to adopt them. So she came up the mountain. She was the first dog in this pack of 20 dogs to come
Leading
up
the
the
pack
mountain. She was
in a
leading the
wheelchair.
pack in a wheelchair.
Right. So Zooming Rosie is one of our many ambassadors to the Houndstown Charities, and she is inspirational. And I like to, she's inspirational to me. She has no use of her back legs, and she literally scoots around like a crazy dog. Adopting a dog like this requires, and this goes for everybody listening, this dog requires a lot of maintenance, right? Expense and so forth. But just your average dog, you got to remember when you adopt a dog, it's going to cost you some money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not just for your own, for your 10-year-old kid to have a dog under the Christmas tree.
It's a commitment.
It's a lifelong,
10, 12, sometimes 15-year commitment.
Right.
So
Rosie, let's talk about, you mentioned something, our theme is rehabilitating people through animals.
Right.
So what describe that?
Well, I think as a pet care system, it's important to give back to the community. You've always thought that since you founded Houndstown 20 years ago. And in 2011, I think we just officiated that by forming a 501c3, Houndstown Charities. And since that time, we've done so many things and helped so many dogs.
Right.
Not theoretically, like you say.
Yeah.
We've had dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of dogs in our facilities doing things like, rehabilitating them, having them come and stay at Houndstown for a period of time, shelter dogs, rescue dogs, having them socialize in our play groups, addressing some of their behavioral needs to help make them more adoptable.
So what I like to think, a lot of places, everybody does charitable things these days. It's kind of the thing to do, right? So I like to think what you said, we do real things. We don't write checks to charity. We could easily do that, donate money to a certain cause, donate money to the ASPCA or whatever. We do what I like to think is real things with real animals and real people. And you described some of the programs where we have a fresh air fund, where dogs from the shelter come and play, and so forth. So it is an anthropomorphic thing. It does have a lot of meaning to us and me and you, of course. But at the end of the day, Rosie was not going to be adopted very easily.
Right. Yes. She had been in a foster home for over a year.
Right.
So it's very difficult to adopt a dog with special needs. So, but it just goes to show you that there's a right home for every dog out there.
Right.
As long as, the dog, just sometimes it takes time. So.
Would you agree with me that sometimes these dogs can be the most rewarding as pets than anything? You could go and buy a dog from a breeder or some damn thing. These dogs can be the most rewarding. And the funny part is, because I always use the example of I had a customer of mine and the dog had bone cancer, and the dog, it was a pit bull actually, and he had to get his leg amputated. And the human owner, we had a great relationship, and he called me, he says, Mike, Amber has to get her leg amputated in a couple of months. Can we start some kind of training or rehabilitation program? And of course, I knew from experience that Amber was going to be perfectly fine without a leg. So I told him, I said, just relax. Let's see how Amber is once Amber gets her leg cut off. And of course, she had her leg amputated. And probably in about 3 or 4 weeks later, as soon as the wound healed, Amber was running around our doggy daycare as though nothing happened. So it's kind of remarkable when you think of humans. They're just like Rosie. She has no use of her legs. She has no problem navigating. She runs through the dog group. She's actually the big shot in the group. She takes care of, she's the more dominant dog in the pack, which is kind of funny. Right. That's her personality.
That's what gives her kind of determination too.
Right. So the point of the matter is, these should be in 3-legged dogs, 2-legged dogs, deaf, blind. I have a blind dog. We had a blind dog here. You wouldn't even know he was blind. I had somebody tell me one time, I put the dog in a group, a pack, and the blind dog was running around a pack, and I asked somebody, I says, I'll bet you $100 you can't pick out the blind dog. And they're like, and I told them which dog it was. And they said, well, that's impossible. The dog must have some vision. And I said, well, that's pretty impossible because he doesn't have eyeballs. So the dog was born without eyeballs.
So dogs adapt very well.
Amazingly,
Yeah.
yes. That's the thing, right.
So I think that's what our charity focuses on is disabled dogs to some degree. Disabled, whether that's physically or whether that's a dog that's at a shelter and labeled, red for behavioral issues. So that's kind of what we specialize in because of your background. We've had dozens and dozens of dogs here at our corporate facility in Ronkonkoma that have benefited from rehabilitative training to make them more adoptable. And, we also do things called, like you mentioned, the Fresh Air Fund, where we partner with shelters and rescues and allow dogs to come into our Houndstown facilities and participate in interactive daycare, which helps their socialization tremendously. And it helps make them more adoptable. It helps the shelters and the rescues understand the dog's personality, what kind of home the dog is ideal for. It helps them understand all of those elements more clearly. And these are things that shelters and rescues aren't necessarily capable of doing in a shelter environment.
Right. And one of the founding philosophies, at least as far as I'm concerned, very often people, pet owners or rescues, whatever shelters, they'll come to me to ask my opinion of whether a dog should be euthanized at all. They'll, what you said about red dogs, at least here in New York, are considered these dogs that are very difficult to manage. They can't be really socialized around certain people and other dogs. And there's never been one time in my life that I've ever recommended a dog be euthanized, because there's always a place that somebody can, safeguard the dog, right?
Right.
So there's always an environment. If the people are willing to take on the responsibility of a red dog, yeah, you might not be taking him to the dog park, you might not be taking him to the beach with you, or what other selfish acts you do, yachting, boating, hiking, as you said, you might not be able to do that. But that doesn't mean these red dogs can't live a very happy, loving life in somebody's, as long as the environment is right.
Right. And we had a red dog actually that we adopted. He passed away a couple years ago, but Joe from a local shelter here on Long Island, he had been at a shelter for 5 years. He was turned over to the shelter by a vet, and he was at the vet because his family took him to the vet to be euthanized because of his behavior. They thought he was an Akita mix, so and I think they lived in an apartment, and they interpreted his behavior as acting aggressively, and they weren't comfortable with him. So they brought him to the vet and said, euthanize this dog. And the vet said, no, there's nothing wrong with this dog, luckily, and called this shelter, and the dog went to the shelter. Now, the shelters are limited, their resources are limited, especially when it comes to understanding behavior issues and addressing them. So Joe sat in the shelter for 5 years.
Literally in a shelter cage, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it was no fault of the shelter. The shelter was nice enough to at least house the dog.
They just didn't really know what
understand.
to do with him.
Right.
And so we kind of got wind of this dog. I used to volunteer at the shelter, so I saw this dog for many years and just thought there was some way that I had to be able to help him. And the years went by and until I started coming to Houndstown and learning about the charity, then, the charity was essentially able to help me adopt him so that he could come and live with me when I had the means and the space to do so. So that's what happened. And
right. And
it was your diagnosis, actually.
Well, the interesting part was, obviously, we're talking about disabilities. His aggression was due to he was deaf. Yep. So the funny thing is, the irony, I guess, the vet was kind enough not to euthanize the dog, but also they never diagnosed the fact that the dog was deaf. So his aggression was all based on nobody's understanding of the dog. So again, this talking about dogs with disabilities, and it doesn't happen that often. If you think about it, how many times do vets check the hearing? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. But nobody checked Joe. Right. And we only found that out after he was here. And once we recognized the fact that he was deaf, we were then able to interact with him knowing that he was deaf.
Right. And his aggression, especially in a cage, in a shelter, he was acting aggressively, right? Quote unquote, because he couldn't hear anything. Right. So he was fearful. And therefore, every time someone came around, he was reacting by barking and growling and biting at the kennel. But really, it was all fear motivated.
Right. But the moral of this story and all the other hundreds of dogs we helped, all of these dogs died of natural causes in a very safe environment. They never bit anybody. They never attacked anybody. We have dogs right now at our facility in South Jersey, Cappuccino. He was a mess, and he just lives his best life. He's not locked in a cage. He runs in a field. Can he socialize with every human being? No. So
right, but we find a way to manage him, and that is sponsored by our charities. It's what we do at Houndstown, what the charity was made for. So on a larger level, we want to continue to help dogs across the country that need this extra kind of special attention when it comes to behavioral issues and physical disabilities. Yes. That's kind of our specialty. Right. So,
and most recently, Houndstown Charity took a dog named Zara from the Brookhaven Town Shelter. Zara was a difficult dog to adopt only because she was misbehaved. She's a big dog. She jumped at people, not aggressively, and she doesn't do well with other dogs. And now she's actually up for adoption. If you want a beautiful,
yeah, she is.
What the hell is she? She's a
husky,
a Malamute.
Oh, really?
I think so. But she's this beautiful dog. She's very well behaved. She went through our training program, our behavioral program. She's at the Brookhaven Town Shelter. If you want a beautiful dog, she's ready and waiting to be adopted. And again, adopt an adult dog. Come on, what's the big deal? It's not the amount of years a dog gives back to you. It's the quality of the life. So we have no problem adopting senior dogs and so forth. They have their best life. We have our best life. They die. We're going to die. It's all part of the life cycle.
Everyone's going to die.
Everybody's exactly. Nobody's getting out of life alive. And dogs have nobody, not one person ever. So don't worry about it. Right. Don't stress. And dogs have a mature quicker, so their life expectancy but it's a natural life cycle. That's all I'm saying. So if you adopt a 5-year-old dog, you'll probably have the next best 7 years of your life.
Right. So, and there are benefits to adopting older dogs. They're presumably housebroken. You don't have to deal with puppies and puppy energy and.
Right.
Right.
So, how do people find out about our charity? If you want to donate some money, which we can always use, how do people learn about our charity?
Well, we have a website, houndstowncharities.org, and on the website, people, will be able to see all the different programs that the charity offers. The Fresh Air Fund. A couple years ago, we did a program called Handcuffs to Healing, where we partnered up 6 dogs from our local shelter in need of adoption with 6 low-level inmates at our local correctional facility.
Yeah.
The inmates trained the dog. It was a 6-week program, and all the dogs got adopted at the end of the day.
That's a pretty remarkable statistic. That was a lot of fun. So we took the 6 dogs. When you think about them both, the humans and the dogs, and this is what's important to me, they were both incarcerated. The humans were incarcerated. They lost their freedom. The dogs were incarcerated. So that was the spirit of the program. The spirit of the program was to take these misunderstood dogs, because that's what they were, and very frankly, many of the inmates, not that they were misunderstood, they got themselves there, but I think it was a very moving spiritual experience for me, and people can see that at houndstowncharities.org. There's a few news clips and so forth. But the point was, it wasn't big things. It was simple. Every week we brought them out. The inmates were able to connect with the dogs, gave them the sense of responsibility. So it's actually, it was, obviously it should be obvious, right? The inmates needed something to understand, and the dogs had the inmates. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. And I'd love to do that again. But money is always an object, right?
Yeah,
it costs us a lot of money to implement that
donations to help support these programs and roll them out really on a national level. So as Houndstown as a pet care system grows, we're hoping to grow the charity so that every Houndstown location can really offer this type of service to their dogs in need in their community. And that's part of our responsibility as a pet care facility for sure.
And as the older I get, I'm trying to find that pathway to heaven. So I'm really want to
getting it.
I want to save a lot of
Getting it in there,
dogs. So
yeah.
when I get there, I can tell the list of dogs. So I want to take on some more dogs. I don't have much time left. What do we got? Anything else? Is that
No, I think that's it. The charity's almost 10 years old now, and I think if we look back, we've done some tremendous work, and we just look forward to continuing to do that. So if you want to see any videos of our dogs that have come through the charity, you can visit us at houndstowncharities.org, or you can check us out on YouTube, our Houndstown USA YouTube channel. And I think that's it, right?
Yes, Jackie, that was remarkable. So yes,
Rosie
folks,
says thank you for
Rosie-
everyone's continued support.
Rosie needs new diapers. No, no. Rosie is well taken care of. She does wear diapers, but that's a whole. So do I. Anyway, we love everyone out there. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Check us out on Facebook, Dish on Dogs Podcast, and we're available on all other podcast platforms. And we'll see everybody next episode.
Thanks. Good work. All right.
Good job. Good.